So again, what I'm expressing is that these matrices exist within the language first when they're introduced into human minds and consciousness. And then the human mind and consciousness begins to unpack more. They basically start walking into a reality through the language. That's the easiest way for me to explain it. So as you learn more and more about the language, then you now become more and more about the reality of that language. And then now you end up having to master their mages.
The following clip is exclusive content from the University. Access over 300 videos and 26 courses with advanced metaphysics on demand. Jump in live chats with Sevan and the rest of the tribe. New materials are available monthly along with guides and regiments. Subscribe today and save $25 off your first month membership. Links are in the descriptions. Subscribe to Secret Energy TV or this channel for future show notifications.
Right, it seems like a perfect time to come into the space right now. First and foremost, just connecting here in this moment, in silence in the heart, just really giving honor and respect for being able to be here at this time with you. Also, honor and respect for you to be on this wavelength at this moment. I'm completely aware something very special has happened. Until I can perfectly articulate that to you, I will not bore in informing you about it and how it works and what it can do for you. I wanted to also take this time to honor the unity by touching and connecting and agreeing. That just means that we still celebrate that there's something about us that brings us into the unity of knowing that we are heading towards that ultimate truth. And many of us have either seen it before or caught a glimpse of it or know that it exists and that it's somewhere. And that, of course, is a space that contains everything that you prefer, where there isn't the constant threat of any type of danger, but more than anything, that is replaced with the love and the honor and the respect that we should definitely give to anything that is a part of us. And when we live by these maxims, they always take care of us no matter what space or whatever time that we're in. We recognize in this moment that while there may be so many things going on the planet, from the economies to the warfare and the territories and the children and all of these things that we know that we've been personally placed in the vibration to send some balance to, we definitely have this, a moment where we get an opportunity to share, to love, and to connect, and to put away anything that we may think is not in alignment with ourselves and just dial in. Like, that includes me, that in this time and in this period that I've had here on earth, I've learned many things. I've experienced a lot. My greatest lesson was with the people. I am also very grateful and happy to be through that lesson and to truly understand us. And as I continue on in the future, no matter what I do, I will keep what has been created here within my heart and protect it. I also wanted to give thanks for the pillars and those who have continued to hold up the wavelength and to be a part of the projection that we're all sharing together, and to make sure that there's a constant or something stable amongst those that may be a little troubled in the waters today or may themselves be looking for more stability. And I trust that we'll all grow stronger so that way we can assist those who are weak, and that we may all grow courageous and bold so we can continue to hold the line and make sure what needs to be transmitted during this time to the DNA gets done, and not by just talking, but also by actions in every moment what we emit. Wholeness. Now, you know the format here. It is the SLS. This is a Sovereign Lounge session. As you know, we open up this session on Fridays because we used to have Tribe Vibes during this time. Tribe Vibes has been moved to Sunday, but we know we've impressed a very powerful space in time. And because of the transmissions that have been arriving at this time also, we want to keep the cycle going, and it does not disappoint However, this is more of a podcast format. Like right now, I'm going to transmit something because it's definitely on my heart to share with you. But then it's a dialogue. So you get an opportunity to ask questions, make statements, have comments. This is really a space that has been designed for you. It is going to be for us an hour and a half. That is generally what we try to stick to. And so the first part is generally on me. That's about 30 minutes. And then everything else is in your hands. So, wow, like I first, again, want to take even another moment just to take a deep breath. You know, and just celebrate their awareness. Like the more things that you do, the more people find out. And, you know, just broadcasting and keeping this transmission going for 16 years now. You know, I was even happened to be on ChatGPT the other day, and it was even explaining who Sevan Bomar is. So I was like, man, you know, it's interesting how, you know, whatever you do, you're carrying a legacy, and it's going to live on in the future. The more imprints you put inside of the reality, the more spaces you will continue to have access to. So now that those, you know, I would say is formalities, protocols, and, you know, honors, respect, celebration, all of that is in play. And we basically began. The train has left the station. I've also muted the lines. I've checked on to make sure that my vibration is coming through clearly. I'm going to take the opportunity to just stand up for a moment and, you know, transmit something to you. And if something is going wild, Sean, just text me on my phone, because that's all I'll have with me. But I just want to not be sitting down, just to allow the energy to flow. And as I said before, this particular narrative, I will trumpet until it's very clear and simplified what it is that I'm coming forward with. Because these mysteries, I can't say it all based on how much I've been through, how much I read, the people that I have come across, their spiritual awareness. I can't really say this knowledge and this awareness is readily available. And this is primarily because languages continue to change, and native tongues continue to be lost. So every time the language changes, if the language doesn't bridge itself to the previous system, then everything in that way will be lost for a while. It'll be forgotten. That's what loss is, forgotten. And I want to take this from the top, though, or the bottom, depending upon how you're looking at it, and propose the question first: what is death really? Because I've had to take a few steps back and redefine things. Just like they say, now you've learned, now you must unlearn. So first there's this whole process of you going through your adepthood, or making it to your adepthood. And then once you become adept, you realize that you actually have a bunch of misconfigured things and misconceptions, misinterpreted words, all this still in your mind. And by muscle memory, even just natural action and reaction, you often go forward or make decisions as if those things are still true. Like only your short-term memory is aware that they're false. And it's going to take time, since a lot of these, you know, inaccuracies have been placed in the consciousness since we were young. It's going to take time to work all of that out. But I definitely have found out a more innovative and advanced way to not only understand what you're going through in your experience, but also give you a clear guide on how to get through it. Because, you know, I can't say how to get out of it, because that's not what we're dealing with. So the question is, what is death really? And the reason why I bring this up is because our definition of death starts bringing up images. It brings up images of still bodies, laying in caskets, people crying, regret, misery. It brings up all of these emotions. And because of that, death becomes hidden. And I've been searching for hidden things. And now death has been completely demystified because of the blueprint that we have, which is based on not only what we experience, like the strongest things that we've experienced, like birth, but also the processes that we experience in life, like family, and all of the different things that occur when you're in one, society, and all of the different things that occur when you're in a society. So we've got an opportunity now in being in the future to actually be able to examine all of the parts of the matrix and how it functions, because we are now even in a session where we can communicate together and we can talk to each other. So I want to just express very clearly to you that what death is very similar to the same transition point that you had when you came into this world. And you should never forget that the deepest mysteries have already been acted out. They're within the fabric of how the entire reality works. But there was something that also occurred that made you afraid of the process called death. And it's important that we at least begin there tonight, and that we understand that moment and how jarring it could be for what happens next. So how it works is that before we get here, we're in a place. And in this place, we're in a certain state. And that state, it feels great. The vibration, the warmth, everything that you can say you would prefer is all happening. And you're in this fantastic experience. And you start getting under the assumptions that this experience, this feeling, this vibration, this mode of being is going to last forever. It almost seems to permeate everything that you're surrounded by, this eternity. And then something occurs and you're removed from that space. That, my great friends, is death. Death is to move on from a space that you have already grown comfortable with, used to, that you recognize, that you know how to operate. So if you can visualize yourself even in your mother's womb, curled up in that nice Fibonacci, even though there was a world outside that all types of stuff was happening, moms was going through all types of stuff, you were still in there inside of your own reality, in your own projection. And then, as what would happen in any type of trance-like state, like you get so comfortable that you don't actually think there is any other states. And then a new state is introduced. And this is why die means to split in two. Because now you are separated from a reality, but you have to be able to be that great supreme being looking in on what's going on. You're leaving your mother's stomach to now be outside. You're still inside of your great-great-grandmother, and now your mother is next to you. So there's just been really a switch of positions, but again, because it wasn't expected, maybe one didn't even prepare for it, the feeling of leaving something so comfortable and coming into something so uncomfortable, like the lights, the shots, you know, the weird energies, the beeps. Man, it sounds like you came into the Matrix if you really think about the experience of a child inside of what I call wetware. And the vibrations and the tones and the frequencies. And then all of a sudden you're brought into this space. So technically, and I'm explaining this to you for a reason. So technically, if you believed in death, this would be the afterlife. Every concept of the afterlife would be related to the place that you're actually in now, not necessarily a place that you think you're going. And so when I look around me right now and I scan the whole earth, it is tough not to see the desolation of children, women, and men. You know, it's like interesting. It's like, yo, they're killing women and children. I'm like, yo, they're killing men too. You know, everybody is dying. What? Look at the banks. You know what I mean? Only the heartless VC capitalist who's leveraged in margin until it doesn't matter anymore. So much opium and cocaine running through the body. It's all about them. They just completely external. Like, that's who's got the money system. Right. The intelligence is often disputed. It doesn't matter what you say, somebody's going to disagree, and it's going to be at least 30%. The reality is so divided. So in all of that, I'm like, wow, where's the good stuff? And of course there are things, but I'm just saying, like, I have to go find it. I have to go look for it. It's not readily available. But if I want the trouble, if I want the smoke, as they say, somebody's ready to give it to me right now. So I had to level a long time ago with where I'm at. And I wrote about this. I talked about this. I took the time years ago with just the language, 2008. I mean, we have to even recognize that some of those things we were talking about early on, they were super early. But 3 or 4 years later, it was like commonplace. Everybody was talking about it as you didn't know where it came from. There's something happening here where we've been able to consistently generate original, bring original back into play here, bring us to the origins. And I've been patient with that. I preserved that to make sure that it could keep building because I knew it was getting to something. But I knew I needed to understand a lot. Mainly, I needed to understand about people before I could actually figure this out, because I'm really trying to figure this out. It's not about the likes. As our brother Willie said, I don't go for the likes. So the reality is that I was transmitting a message to everyone because I knew that even if I kept doing that, it would also keep encouraging me to go further and further. So it was like y'all were egging me on the whole time. And that's why, remember, I went through the experiences with even the DMT and heavy into the breathing and lots of different occult works and books and, you know, and also just the natural flux of what it takes to not be agreeing with everybody in the matrix and then see how that energy really looks on the astral plane. But it all has not been in vain at all, my friends, because now we're at the next level. I can't say it's the final one, but I can say it definitely sums up much of what's been going on in the matrix. So listen to this. So let's just assume what I'm saying is true, that we're actually in the afterlife. What do they say generally occurs when you start the process of going through what they say the netherworld? You receive a guide. So because so many people were looking for these external guides, as I've so eloquently shown everyone, this is where all these external gods came from, which when you start looking at all their names and synchronizing them all back, the most popular one that's winning like 80% of the game is like Thoth, Hermes, the Jack, the Joker, you know, the same symbolism, the same entity, Anubis. But for clearly the word was psychopompus, that the psychopompus which is basically what you would say is the guide to the person in the netherworld, was technically in the matrix everywhere that I looked, the actual God people were worshiping. And of course, the psychopompus had all these different traits to it: a trickster, ego, all this stuff. So again, people were looking at it externally, and some became worshipers, as I said, of the psychopompus through all these external messiahs. And that is what blocked them from being able to see that actually, when you understand the highest levels of this, the language is the psychopompus. The language is the guide. So now, like I said, we go right to the core, right to what's happening. If I end up in a world, there's no ghosts or anything that are guiding me. There is the language that guides me, because without the language, I can't communicate. Without the language, I have no guide. It's the first thing that happens that allows me to get acclimated with the world that I'm in. And that's how people missed it, because they didn't realize that the language was alive. Now, it's tough to see it with English. Obviously, this is not your native tongue. The people who speak English are over in England. They're a union of jacks. Look at what they say. They're a union, meaning a group of jacks or jokers or Hermes or psychopomps or pentagrams. Or like you see in the top corner, the dice. And, before I elaborate on that any deeper, you just need to understand that when you were speaking your native tongue, which contains your native name, that was your psychopomp. That was your guide. I'll say it still is, because it still resides in your DNA, but it is really encoded. They be talking about encoding. What's being encoded? Oh, your language, your name in your original tongue, and then your psychopomp, meaning your God that used to guide you through these different situations, has been completely removed, because the language has been removed and you've been given a new language. Behold, a new language, a new tongue. Now, for those that haven't been participating at all in Tribe Vibes and what's going on in Sovereignty Mentorship, because, it's still alive and kicking, we went over a few things, and I cannot help but to elaborate on a couple of those things here so you know what I'm talking about completely, just so that it's all on wax right here, right now. I was expressing that, hey, we figure out stuff collectively every day. Remember that? People learn stuff every day still, the whole world. Not everybody knows everything that's going on, clearly. So because the world comes into new discoveries every day, it does really require us to kind of be looking out. Just have your spidey senses on for transmissions being sent about something that's been discovered that can corroborate what you already know but are struggling to prove. And in this way, there was a recent discovery that simply showed that there is a specific region of our brain on the left hemisphere that is called the language system. That is the only area that activates when you speak languages. They went so deep to even try Klingon, which is not what you would say, quote unquote, a language is, but Klingon was completely developed out like a language for filming purposes. And it was doing the same thing, that all languages activate a specific region in your brain on the left hemisphere. And the reason why this is important is because you can now see that area on the bottom left as like a map of the world, where your world, your existence, where this area is being preoccupied by psychopompus. which is the language. And this is like real estate in your consciousness. As you can see, this is definitely not the majority of your consciousness. But this is, that's probably beachfront property over there sitting by the pineal gland. But I'm just saying, it's that awareness now that, hey, language is activating a specific part of the brain. And guess what? Numbers, symbols, they don't touch this region. Numbers and symbols activate a region on the right hemisphere of the brain, showing that any culture that only used numbers and symbols to communicate were definitely not in the same reality that we're in right now, speaking English. And also, when you understand the difference between the left hemisphere of the brain versus the right, you start getting a bigger picture, because the left is the logic. So now think about how a psychopompus is number one symbol. Thought, it's number one gift to consciousness, the world, whatever, was what? Language. Because this is not an external thing. This is a riddle, a mystery that adepts learn through, I guess, either meanings like this, with teachers and instructors, or it just literally starts to dawn on them, these mysteries, once they stop being so external with everything, right? But generally, you don't start off with that kind of teaching. You don't start off being external. So you realize everything is internal, and that, especially again, when you're speaking your native language, you're already introduced to your guide. And now in the ancient traditions, they wrote more about this. They mention also that your guide's destiny was also inexplicably linked with your own. So it wasn't just there to look out for you and protect you. It also was there to guide the destiny and the ultimate outcome of you, because the ultimate outcome of you became the ultimate outcome of it. So you rolled with your psychopomp. It learned from you. In many ways, you trained it. Even right now, it is watching, it is recording in that same language that you're speaking. And then it either becomes the vehicle in which you ride, even through the astral plane and even through life, or it actually shapes up to be a person's nemesis, constantly communicating negative things, distorted things, divisive things inside of the brain and inside of the mind as it begins to infect the consciousness. So this magnum opus of the awareness that language in itself is not only alive, but also brings forth a specific type of energy, a specific type of symbol, gets us a little bit deeper into what even modern occultism actually is. So every occult system has its own codes and symbols. And that's why I was saying on the top left, this would also unfold as a tesseract. This pattern, this X-like pattern that you're seeing inside of this hypercube is the Maltese cross. And this is why the queen and the royal people of the realm, they wear this specific cross. Haile Selassie. And this cross is a symbol of just that. You have access to both worlds. Your body is like a periodic table. Sometimes, let me show you, like, you can think of when I split something in half, or when somebody splits something in half, like, think about the human body. If I say, hey, we're split in half, you may cut the line from the center, like between the eyes and on down, between the breasts, and then cut off two halves like that. Versus the cut in half that I'm talking about is if you stood to the side and start slicing from the shoulder, you would get two halves of the person in that way too. And this is what the two realities are like. There's like a front and then there's a back. And, I have to take time to now bring in all of my pictures, like I think I'm going to probably, go in on Brother Rich's show, which I'm scheduled for in a couple weeks. Because now I have to update everything because it will 100% align to this. Because as I mentioned before, now we know why these languages were designed as symbols first. So as we know on the left, that is the symbol on the bottom left. That is the symbol for the English language called the monogram. And this spells out all of the letters in English, which are runes. The English language comes from runes. So if you want to know, well, whose psychopomp is running the matrix? He's got Hunging and Munging running with him. Where's that? Wednesday. He's got the two black dogs. So that's the cognative Hermes in that tradition is Odin, the one-eyed god. But when you look at all of that symbolism, it's talking about the occult reality of the English world. And as I said before, why a lot of folks be having their race wars and all that, King James was a big component of the Gothic world in the temples that were built. So this is not a color thing at all in the physical matrix. This is where the heavy occultism comes in, where stuff starts even getting spooky. Because you do have people that are sworn to secrecy. You do have people that understand this level of power. It creates things from people like raw material. You could take a person and reconfigure them by understanding the symbols that are moving through their consciousness. And remember, you catch evidence of it because it won't be the first time, meaning that you'll find other examples like this is Hebrew. It breaks down to what you would say is the Star of David. As all the symbols drop onto themselves, they make a Star of David. So what I'm getting at here just specifically and very simply is that language is a master symbol. And then this master symbol lays in the quadrant of the consciousness. Okay. And now you have to visualize this three-dimensionally though, because now what you would see is like it was when you talk, it's pulling from vectors, just like even in AI right now. When you want to train AI and you want to fine tune, you get a vector set. And this just means the actual data the fine tuning data that you want to train on, and you make vectors. And vectors are just points, absolute points where horizontal and vertical things cross, points where opposites come together. And so these points begin to light up. So when you're talking, all these points begin to light up and they begin to animate. And they're like bioluminescent in a way that once you light them up, they stay lit for quite a bit of time, and then they start to fade out until you send light to them again. And this is what you're calling your memories. But meanwhile, you're actually still in a world, if you may, that is more like a maze. So in the ancient times, they explained this through the realm of spirits because they felt it was easier to educate from the perspective of a spirit, from the perspective of a being that was air and fire, not necessarily air, fire, earth, and water, so that they could get an elevated view of what we actually are. And what they came to discover was that the consciousness, or the mind, as you would call it, was like a city. And in this city, all types of beings lived in there based on the different things that have been introduced to the consciousness over time. Mainly, how many different languages have you been through? How many different cultures have you popped up in? Like even now, when we're coming in, I'm coming in speaking English, but you can definitely say, if I was in any other reality before, I probably wasn't speaking English, right? But I'm still using the same DNA strands. I'm still using my same thread. I'm still using my same blockchain, if you may. So now I'm basically creating existences through these codes that create realities. However, if I don't understand the code, I'm lost in the reality. And on top of that, because like I said, this is not just like I'm drawing a maze and we just need to go through it with our hand and we're done. Deep in the maze are deeper parts of the consciousness, primal aspects of the consciousness that one encounters, archetypes. And these archetypes have been, from what my observations, running the psychopomp. Meaning like the archetypes, who I tried to explain to everybody if they weren't so afraid of every damn thing, the archetypes are the archons. They are the orgons. They're primes. And what this means is people couldn't destroy the world anyway because the primes, they're in the whales, they replicate themselves to hold anchor. Like hearts are in everything. Spleens are in everything, or in a lot of things. I'll put it that way. So basically in the underpinnings of realities, there's like real pillars. So even when the human body was built, the human body is a model of the psychopomp. It is a model of the language. But also, this is why, like when you look at Arabic, they even say with Allah, arm, leg, arm, head. When you look at the tetragrammaton, you can see how they stack the tetragrammaton on itself, Yad-He Vahe, and it makes the symbol of a man. And then in the beginning was the Word, and the Word did not come back void. This is the Word. It's the psychopomp. And the psychopomp animates inside of the consciousness. And then it also pings by proxy. And that just means that everybody speaks the language. So the more that you learn the language, the more you can get intertwined with everybody else that knows the language. So you're in union, like you're in the united now. So you look at the flag, it's the United. They got all them pentagrams up there for a reason. And those are the same stripes from the Union Jack, the same color, the red pill, the blue pill, and then that white in there. So again, what I'm expressing is that these matrices exist within the language first when they're introduced into human minds and consciousness. And then the human mind and consciousness begins to unpack more. They basically start walking into a reality through the language. That's the easiest way for me to explain it. So as you learn more and more about the language, then you now become more and more about the reality of that language. And then now you end up having to master their mages, meaning that their masters, abracadabra, the ones who have mastered the language already in these triangles. This is why the triangles are in themselves like this pattern that you see on the right, where it's like a bunch of interlacing triangles, just like the Sri Yantra. This is like the embedding of the worlds and the embedding of the language within the consciousness. And then so again, it could be very maze-like because one can kind of get so deep into it. And then what happens next? Because the psychopomp, it's a vehicle. It's not the person, but the person can become hijacked or tricked to believe that they are only the id. And this happens easy because of the narrative going on between them in the mind generally is a narrative spoken within the language. Meaning when you're meditating, you're not talking, and that's how you're reaching into these states. The moment you start talking in your mind, you start activating the left hemisphere. most people don't meditate anyway. So they're already talking in their mind. So they're basically like meditating in their left hemisphere. And in that, they're like a dog chasing their tail, because the symbol of the psychopomp is a black dog. This is why Anubis is a black dog, because he is the guide into this particular netherworld right here. This one, Amaraka, Egypt, Kemet, whatever they want to call it. It's a black dog world here. Females and males. And it's a lot to do with, that's why it's big five, serious, right? So this is because when you work with souls, which again, now we have to elevate 1 second to jinn. These are beings that live longer and run circles around humans when it comes to intelligence. Not in other things, because of their temperaments and many different things, they have their flaws for real. But when it comes to just the knowledge and wisdom of the earth, which is alchemy, and the sciences of the stars and lights and the electromagnetic spectrum, they're masters. They're masters of the waveform, as it's known as. So this level of engagement, because the human beings have almost been wholesaled into jack-like pentagram psychopomps, they're no longer the multi-splendid, weird, geometric, non-Euclidean stuff that the ancestors like Credo Mutwa eating Chitawuli were cooking up. You see what I mean? So like when you listen to some of these ancient languages, you realize they on something. Like when you look at Tamil, let me check in with the chat real quick, make sure everybody is on point. Okay. So I'm just saying, like, you can see why the cookie cutter, like, literally the cookie cutter be like them stars, right? But you can see why they will want to cookie cutter a lot of the stuff, even within the language. They will want to turn off the vocals, right? Like the ones that are guttural and go down deep into the chest. And they will want to give a bass tongue so that none of the old awareness, because this is why I call the psychopomp also the black box. Okay? Because this is just how the knowledge was coming through. Like, you got to understand that when the plane crashed, all we need to do is find the black box. And then once we get the black box, then we can figure out everything that happened. So in that way, we can almost like reanimate the final scene again. And if we can reanimate the final scene, then we can basically continue the person's stream. So like even in reality management, soul management, it would be like a field of black graphite cubes corresponding to the last stage of a person's id consciousness. What is id consciousness? ID consciousness. This is like, I am this, I'm that. What you can see people get caught up on. And they be slipping because they get so much into this character. They try to defend this character so much and define this character so much. And they spend a lot of time and a lot of energy on it. And then it's like you can literally see them once you outside of the box, how they became distracted by their psychopomp. Because the psychopomp is like a joker. It's dancing in front of the king. It's a jester. It's dancing in front of you. Look at me. I want to do this. And as I said, this is a being, as the heirs would say, you have to train this thing. It's like a wild animal for real. It's extremely powerful, but wild nonetheless. And you would have to train it. And that's what these ancient teachings were about. So it wasn't to be taken personal. So when you become an id, when you become an ID, you think that you're the one that needs to meditate. And you start thinking you're the one that is getting out of your mind. And you start basically associating yourself with something that is just a product of you, just a part of you in the way that of a technology that is very similar to how trees operate, that the tree is already developing its next stage at its current stage. It's not waiting to the next stage to start developing. Listen to what I'm saying. You're already developing what you're going to do next and what you're going to be next. But if you're not available because you don't even believe that's how it works, Psychopomp is over there on automaton zombie doing it with rituals and shit that is promoted by the controllers of the reality because they control the languages and the Psychopomp. Like this is the real, what you would say is like a puppeteer, right? Because that's what there's a puppeteer on a pentagram with 5 strings hanging from him. So when we say now, think outside the box, what we're saying is, yo, you got to step outside of the Psychopomp. Like you coming out of the studio and think out there. Because, and then you got to identify, whoa, okay, that's why, this is why all over the Matrix, you see even the Baphomet, that's all the same symbol. They're encouraging, hey, they built this language. So it's like, it's not telling you, yo, you can't use the language. No, I'm telling you, yo, master the language because then you will hold 1 star. This is like 1 ring like Thanos. You got 4 more left. Like no telling what is hidden within hieratic and demotic script. No telling what is hidden within these ancient languages, but I can definitely tell you it's all a part of the consciousness. And I can for sure tell you that this would be what they don't want anybody to be touching on. And this is why very few people speak any ancient language. But as I said before, now we keep going forward. We're innovating. Now it's just about morphemes or memphemes, excuse me. It's about memphemes. It's about being able to query for the root to something to discover its origin in order for you to see the pattern. Like many are already doing it now. It's like the cipher inside of the consciousness begins to decode everything in the reality. And it begins to let you know the truth to what is actually going on. But as I said before, don't be expecting, though, for that person right next to you or in the mall or whatever to be aware of anything like this. Now, what I tell you right now, let everybody challenge. And watch over the years how they all fold. Meaning that whether the world wants to accept it now or later, they're going to have to come to the awareness of exactly what I'm telling you right now. And so that kind of tells you how far maybe we are from world enlightenment. It may be up to you. But I'm just saying, like the playing around that has been going on now that you can see, wait a minute. Are you saying, well, they real far away. Like, how would they ever get to the notion that they're already in afterlife and that they're being guided by the language that is in their mind and that the language inside of their mind is actually alive? So that's what over the next few months, I think it'll take for me to completely simplify this, that I'll be doing so that the world can grow stronger. Even a few people beginning to resonate this awareness just to recognize what's going on and how much power you have. Because even as I said before, many seem to connect right into Kemet. Still seeing pyramids in their dreams and sphinxes and all this kind of stuff. Something happened. And these people spoke math and symbols. So they weren't even on the same hemisphere. And as I said before, you got other people that they language, like Kemetan does that too. It moves up, down, left, right. Chinese, Japanese, some of these old ancient Oriental languages, they do the same thing. So all I'm saying is that like we have something great ahead of us. Because now that we're on to what's happening, because see, they know the language has power. Like, you see how they describe. So now it's like for all y'all that wanted to believe in Thoth so bad after I had, explained to everybody, look, Thoth is still a trickster God. He's got all of the symbolism. Not telling you to love him or hate him, but there's something about what they're expressing here. Now we know it's psychopompous. But then when you think about the power that is also associated with these beings, you understand that that is the same power that is in the language, whether you're using it or not. And so as you continue to go forward, it'll reveal itself to you. That's what happened to me. In conclusion, I was in the room and it just said, yeah, James, you like to play games. You're trying to get light, but you need to get light. You got too much weight, so you're just going to wait. And that's what I'm saying by it was talking 4 layers back in my brain. This is what people call going crazy. Because now there's a voice or a narrator, and you're not controlling the narrator. And some people, they break right away. I even felt myself like, yo, as I told everybody, I even said to myself, look, you went and broke your brain, James. Like I was sorry for myself. Like I was like witnessing myself. Like, look, now you done turned on something and it's talking and we can't even stop it. We gonna go crazy. And then, conscious movement like, yo, just relax. Nobody's here to hurt you. There's some knowledge that needs to come across. And then it transmit more. Like, remember those times when your mother was praying? Because mom would just go on these praying sprees. They call them prayer warriors. Some still got grandmas like that. It's still unfortunate that they're calling on this Jesus guy. Imagine if they were sending that right back into the DNA and sending that into the family line, and they was just running them prayers. Because them prayers, let me see, I think I got a little connection issue. Let me see if I'm good. Sean, give me a thumbs up if I'm still good. All right, we still going with it. All right, we still going with it. 1 second. There it is. Yeah. So I'm wrapping up here. Those prayers were basically stepping into the future. Those intentions, you just got to boil it down. You got to look at the dynamics just to prove that it's possible. I don't know who can do it. Who has the heart, the soul, and the might to intercede like that? That's why women are so strong, because they actually care about like the future and the kids, and they can get to crying and entreating, and they start building the future so that there's protection in that. But there was also a strange tongue going on. And that's another thing that has to be examined, is that when these prayer warriors were getting in spirit filled, they started talking in another language. Right? You've heard it. I used to call it the Chandala. Chandala. The Hindus say it's the language of the serpents. We'll also say it's the language of the birds, just in case, it's like, just to keep everybody cool. It's like, it's the language of the doves. But I'm just saying, like, something is going on, but it keeps being ignored. And as I said before, they put so much time and energy. I'm just one person that just says, hey, why don't we study spirituality professionally, clinically, right? We can use just one person doing that. He'll be the only one that goes to hell because he doesn't believe in Jesus. It's okay. We can risk him. Maybe he will discover something, right? So I'm just saying, I'm that one person that's taking a different lane because I see some commonalities, but I also see some mistakes because I'm a stickler for detail. And sometimes common sense ain't common. So there's certain things that are even said, like I said in the books, curses any man that hangeth upon a tree. So they go hang him on a tree. From now on after this, don't wander after anybody saying they are me because there won't be any. I will only be in your heart. As soon as he leave, everybody wandering after external version. You see what I mean? So every single rule was already disobeyed from all of these so-called spiritual books to hold people in contempt. So now it's like, but I'm not going to just ground out in the matrix like, duh, I don't know what's going on. I can't figure it out. I'm not smart enough. I'm going to observe what I was experiencing since I was a child all the way up to now. And I've always had the fervent for spiritual knowledge being the solution and the answer to things. And lo and behold, it has answered it. Now, I want to say this final thing. The only burden that I have is this message. I mean, the only thing that I could say is me doing something when I feel like I should be eating, when I feel like I should be sleeping, when I feel like I should be taking care of my health, when I feel like I should be doing anything else. This is the only thing that exists is this message and getting it to everybody. I do know, not believe, I know that this message, it changes things. It's like some say, well, you can't do it virtually. And I'm like telling you, yo, if you went on the streets, it always works one way. They throw you up on their shoulders like you're their hero. And they're leading you to the Coliseum to fight the last one. And if you're strong enough, you beat him and you stay there for a time until they bring in the next guy, meaning that when you're just out there, they're like, yo, Sevan, come over here. Come do this. Yo, your knowledge, brother, we love you. You know, next thing you know, you 19 keys status. But how do you grow? How do you learn? How do you continue to move on? How do you continue to evolve your message with so much distraction? So they stuck me right in the jungle. There's no distractions. Also, I'm a number 4. I'm Rahu. So generally, I'm sitting in something at least 200,000 and at least 600 horsepower on the pedal. And I'm up all night. And I like big cities. And I like exotic things. So all of that, because this is what I'm saying also, is like you had a master system. The masters already came through and they gave you the 9. I can't tell you how much of how the ancient knowledge is all built around 9 characters that they're trying to allow you to understand how they function. So that way, when you start really going into the battlefield of Aranha, which means the battlefield of your own consciousness, your body and your chakras and the worlds that you're going to be moving through, that you understand the energies and expressions that are going to come from your ancestors that you're going to need to train up. That's what genealogy is. Now, the last thing oh my goodness, there's a council of 9 aliens. Come on. I'm telling you, that's where they're at right now, right? They got this secret council of 9 aliens and the 9 Jasons, right? This is the highest level of Mount Shasta at this stage. Because they want to be this so bad. Like I said, there was 9 gods in Kemet and they move in a cycle. They move in a system like Marco Rodin's rodent coil. So that way you always know, hey, if you're experiencing this, here's what thwarts this. This is what Solomon's magic was. Here's, if you got a demon, here's the angel that thwarts that. So what I'm saying is the pattern of the Enneagram, how it moves through numbers, and we have a chart of this, How it moves through numbers is because it'll show you, yo, if you have -2 traits, look at the number that is adjacent to you on the wing, and then that number is what dissolves those traits. And when you want to know what dissolves it, you go to that number and you look at all the herbs, the colors, the plants, and they gave like 50 different categories of things that no matter where you were at in the matrix, even if you were in a jail cell, you would be able to find one of these elements somewhere on yard call or something that could begin to nullify that energy. That is master magus. If he could not or she could not pull it from their own minds and their own consciousness, the resonators to balance out the organs or the archons, because they are oft forgetful, as they say about the elder gods. They are oft forgetful. This just means that you constantly have to stay on point to animate wetware. You can see how hard it is for them right now to create these little crazy ass robots they got and to get that little AI going on with all the GPUs and all this power they booting up, and thing, barely can write a blog, right? You know what I mean? It's still a work in progress. But I'm saying, if you see how much time and attention is put into that, and then you look at the human body and you actually see exactly how it's designed, and then you consider the spiritual aspects of what it is too, and then you place a little bit more about what I'm saying right now about even codes or frameworks being able to be inserted into your consciousness and operate parallel to your own reality. And that is your parents. So I know some have been feeling like, yo, where's God? Where is, fill in the blank? We getting hammered down here. Where is he at? Where is it at? And I'm telling you, that's all psychopomp talk. That's exactly why he doesn't need to be driving. Because at the same time, with all of that, it's like dealing with a child. It thinks it knows everything until it start heating up. Like, you ever seen a kid when he accidentally set fire and it was fun at first, and then now he's looking for an adult. And this is how it is dealing with the psychopomp. The chest is all poked out. They ready to beat up a demon, they say. But a little bit of DMT and a little machine elf roll by, oh my goodness, he's out of the body. I'm just saying, it's like being able to match what we are, like basically aligning the heart and the mind. I'm going to put you with that tonight, and we're going to go ahead and open this up. Aligning the heart with the mind. Now that you understand what is going on, that you are multiple beings, but you need to identify old Jack because you understand English now. And you also need to understand like how your power and your connection is also within studying your feelings. That's the other side of the brain. That's the 9, their feelings. And then with these two together, because don't think for one moment that the upgraders, if you may, didn't put all this stuff together for you to potentially grow into something greater. This is not English now comes in, now you're doomed. No. This is the final frontier. Once you get this, you have the master key. Anyone who has gotten this does not do this anymore. As I said before, listen to what I'm saying. This is how you know it's the truth. Because all the languages activate the same region of the brain, to master one language would be to master all of the spoken languages. Thus, to master all of the spoken languages would be to master all of the physical worlds that you ever entered. So when you be going to the dream and crashing into the dreams, because these dreams are layers of the netherworld, but the netherworlds are different, what you would call physical worlds. That's what they are. But these are, you're seeing also through the dirty lens. There's so much confusion. This is what I'm saying. This is where the tricking comes from, like a kaleidoscope, like a mirror room. So that's why it's so powerful to be back into that center to be in that wholeness and be in that connection, because that's the only way you're going to figure this out. That's exactly what happened to me. I'm sitting in front of the knowledge for 10 years. And only until I decided to no longer make there be any other thing outside of me was when I was able to actually see the truth. That's how it unlocks.
You already know what it is. Solid rotation.
Wildin' in the Matrix, started with the basic granny records in the basement, cooking some ancient, about the right burner like